You are standing at the edge of the greatest transition your soul has ever known, and you can feel it even if you can't yet explain it. Something in you has been tightening and loosening at the same time, like a deep breath held for years finally being released. Tomorrow, everything shifts. Not because the clock changes or because another square turns on the calendar, but because an internal threshold you've been approaching step by step, choice by choice, reaches its point of ignition. I bring you this message not as entertainment, not as speculation, and not as theory. Receive it as a transmission, a directive from the Arcturian Council, from those who have walked the path of dimensional ascension long before humanity took its first breath, from intelligences who understand the architecture of consciousness, the way an engineer understands a bridge. They are not here to impress you. They are here to prepare you. What you have been living through, every moment you thought you were just trying to get better, every day you forced yourself to keep moving when you could have collapsed into fear, was never random. You have been unconsciously orchestrating an energetic recalibration through every act of honesty, every boundary you finally held, every time you chose to heal rather than repeat what hurt you. You have been dismantling invisible structures you didn't even know you were carrying. That process does not drift on indefinitely, it culminates. It locks into place, it becomes irreversible, and the Council says it culminates at sunrise. Tomorrow is not simply another day. It is a threshold moment, one of those rare points where your soul's original design finally supersedes the collective hypnosis that has kept human consciousness confined inside a prison of limitation. Many will experience this as collapse, because anything built on fear feels like it is falling apart when it can no longer control you. But you will recognize it as breakthrough, not because you are better than anyone else, but because you have trained yourself through pain, through discipline, through repeated choosing to feel what is true beneath what is loud. Here is the truth that has not been shared with you clearly. Your personal healing journey was never only about you. It was never merely self-improvement or the polishing of a personality. You have been systematically deconstructing the energetic scaffolding that bound your incarnation to a frequency far beneath your natural resonance. You have been removing agreements you made, unconsciously agreements with scarcity, with unworthiness, with the belief that you must earn love, or that safety is guaranteed only by control. Each time you released one of those agreements, your field loosened, your signal clarified, your soul began to occupy more of your body, more of your life, more of your choices. This message has located you because your higher intelligence recognizes you are prepared to cross through a portal that opens when old cycles reach their final hour. You did not stumble here. Your soul magnetized this transmission into your awareness at this precise junction because tomorrow does not represent conclusion. It signals activation. It signals the ignition of the timeline you have been constructing in the quantum realm. Through every instance you selected love, when fear seemed easier, through every moment you refused to betray your inner knowing just to fit the expectations around you. Understand what is being said. This is not casual content. This is preparation for a moment your eternal self has anticipated across multiple lifetimes. Your presence here is not coincidence. It is alignment. Most of humanity imagines spiritual awakening as a gentle, gradual revelation. They think it means discovering inner peace, uncovering purpose, feeling connected to something larger, becoming calmer, kinder, perhaps more centered. They picture a quiet unfolding, achieved through meditation, retreats, or reflective insight, beautiful and sometimes true. But for those carrying starseed frequencies, those rare souls encoded with primordial galactic intelligence woven into the fabric of their DNA, awakening is often not comfortable. It is not tidy. It is not always serene. It is alchemical. It is disruptive. It is exhilarating and disorienting, because it is not asking you to decorate your current identity with spiritual language. It is asking you to outgrow it entirely. For you, awakening is not about locating yourself within the safe boundaries of who you have been. It unfolds as complete reconstruction. It requires the dissolving of constructs you once believed defined you. The roles you played to be accepted, the masks you wore to avoid rejection, the strategies you used to survive environments that were not designed for your sensitivity or your truth. It is the systematic deconstruction of the false self, followed by the astonished witnessing of reality itself, reorganizing around the radical expansion of your awareness. Like the phoenix, rebirth requires burning what came before, and burning does not always feel like light. Sometimes it feels like loss. Sometimes it feels like confusion. Sometimes it feels like everything that once worked stops working at once. This is why so many people retreat when transformation arrives. They assume discomfort means they are doing something wrong. But the counsel is clear. The discomfort is often the sign that the old architecture can no longer hold the new frequency. In this critical juncture of human evolution, millions of awakened beings across the world are experiencing something that sounds impossible to those still operating within conventional frameworks. They are transitioning between timelines, not as a metaphor for personal growth, not as symbolic language for a changed worldview, as genuine energetic migration, a shift of electromagnetic signature, identity, attention, and reality band. They are extracting themselves deliberately and sometimes spontaneously from heavy, fear-saturated linear constructs that most of humanity assumes are permanent and immovable. They are no longer feeding those constructs with their life force. Instead, they are embedding their being into what the Arcturian Council identifies as the crystalline frequency band, a higher dimensional existence where physical laws become more malleable, where matter responds more directly to the commanding force of consciousness, where meaningful coincidence moves from rare exception to consistent foundation. In this band, every selection, every thought pattern, every emotional state, every belief you repeat, creates immediate resonance across infinite parallel realities. You are no longer waiting for life to happen. You are participating in a web of collaborative creation that is intricate, intelligent, and vast. This is existence built on harmonic alignment, radiant energy, and the living mathematics of love. It is a radical departure from the collapsing paradigm, but here is what remains unspoken about this magnificent transformation. It does not initially feel the way spiritual literature romanticizes. It may not arrive with tranquil radiance or celestial harmonies. At first, it can feel like instability, like the ground beneath your identity is shifting, like what once felt solid evaporates into vapor. This is not punishment, this is recalibration. The old world in you, the old agreements, the old attachments begins to loosen, and loosening can feel like falling if you are still trying to grip the past. Your closest relationships, once anchors of stability, may begin to morph in ways you cannot explain. You may feel as though you suddenly speak incompatible vibrational dialects with people you love. Some connections will deepen beyond anything you imagined. Others may fade without drama, but with unmistakable finality. Your professional life, especially if it was built more on expectation than genuine resonance, may start to feel empty, directionless, stripped of meaning. You may look at routines you once tolerated and wonder how you ever convinced yourself they were enough. The constant stream of headlines, the perpetual cycles of conflict, the collective fear that once felt like the heartbeat of existence may begin to register as background interference. Noise from a reality you are no longer energetically inhabiting, a broadcast you have quietly stopped tuning into. And perhaps the most destabilizing part, people around you may continue acting as if reality has not changed. They will argue over the same narratives. They will repeat the same fears. They will seek control the way drowning people seek air. Meanwhile, you will be perceiving with your entire being the fabric of existence, reorganizing in real time, like an infinite kaleidoscope, revealing new patterns with every breath. This is not gradual spiritual development. This is quantum transformation. It is dimensional advancement. It is a reconfiguration of your energetic infrastructure. So if your life has been feeling increasingly dreamlike, if ordinary situations suddenly seem surreal, as though the edges of reality are softer than they used to be, understand what that may indicate. If you have noticed that your mental focus, whether constructive or destructive, seems to materialize with startling speed, ideas appearing as opportunities, fears echoing as obstacles, recognize what that suggests about your power. If you have experienced time expanding, contracting, folding in on itself, moments stretching wide, days disappearing in a blink, know that your relationship to linearity is changing. If you find yourself receiving knowledge, you have no conventional way of knowing sudden revelations, clear inner directives, symbolic patterns that feel too precise to be coincidence. Do not label yourself broken. You are not deteriorating. You are remembering. You are releasing the forgetting that comes with human embodiment. You are reactivating sleeping instructions of your multidimensional essence. You are reclaiming your inheritance as sovereign consciousness, and you are not alone. This awakening is not occurring in isolation. You are part of a wave that has been building for decades, gathering force, preparing for this precise window in human history. The Council has been working with humanity across generations, seeding codes into the collective field, subtle keys placed in dreams, in art, in sudden awakenings, in the longing that has followed sensitive souls their entire lives. These codes do not activate randomly. They activate when enough individuals reach the frequency required to carry them without distortion. That moment is now. That activation is tomorrow. If you feel something in you responding, if a quiet, undeniable recognition is rising, treat that as information, not proof you need to convince anyone of, but guidance for how you will move. The crystalline timeline is not a distant promise. It is not fantasy. It is a dimensional frequency that exists right now, occupying the same space as the third-dimensional reality most people inhabit, but vibrating at a different rate. Like radio stations, multiple realities broadcast through the same field. You only hear the one you are tuned to. Your consciousness is the tuning mechanism. As you elevate your frequency through healing, through integrity, through choosing love, through refusing to feed fear-based narratives, you are adjusting your inner signal to match the crystalline broadcast. And what makes this moment extraordinary is not that awakening exists. Awakening has always been possible, and spiritual masters have proven it. What is unprecedented is scale. For the first time in human civilization, enough souls have reached the threshold that a collective jump becomes possible. Not everyone will leap, not everyone will choose it. But enough will, and that creates a stabilizing lattice, a bridge others can later cross. This is why you feel urgency. This is why you cannot go back to who you used to be. This is why your soul pulled you toward this message at the exact moment it did. Tomorrow is not the end of the world. It is the end of a certain world inside you, the world where you shrink your power to be safe, where you negotiate your truth to be loved, where you confuse fear with realism. At sunrise, remember, the portal is not somewhere outside you. It opens through you. Stand gently. Breathe deliberately. Bless what is leaving. Welcome what is arriving. Choose the frequency you want to live in, and then live as if it is already real, because on the crystalline timeline, it is. The transition into the crystalline frequency is not random happenstance, not an accidental cosmic occurrence that simply happens to you. It unfolds as a precisely choreographed progression, a sequence of energetic stages that follow laws as real as gravity, yet subtle enough that most people only feel their effects as disorientation. When you do not understand what is happening, you experience the shift as overwhelming confusion, a loss of certainty, a collapse of motivation, a strange sense that your life no longer fits the shape it used to. But when you possess comprehension, when you recognize these sacred stages and their purpose, you gain a remarkable capacity, the ability to move through them with intentional elegance rather than fearful struggle. This wisdom transforms what could feel like devastating chaos into empowered participation with universal intelligence itself. Instead of resisting the momentum, you learn to harmonize with it. And when you harmonize with it, the transition becomes not an ordeal that breaks you, but an initiation that reveals you. The first phase, the groundwork upon which transformation must establish itself, is the complete dissolution of outdated programming. Imagine an ancient blueprint that once supported a smaller structure, useful once, necessary once, but now too fragile, too limited, too distorted to hold what you are becoming. The crystalline frequency cannot be built on the scaffolding of a misaligned identity. It cannot anchor into an operating system designed for survival-based reality. So, the old code begins to uninstall. At first, this feels like loss of interest. Everything that previously provided stability, security, predictability, and self-definition starts to feel synthetic, superficial, even suffocating. The job that once gave you a sense of purpose or safety begins to feel like a costume. The relationships that once made you feel you belonged begin to feel like contracts written in a language you no longer speak. The habits that once calmed your nervous system begin to feel like loops you are tired of running. It's as if the universe takes the entire familiar structure of your life and quietly whispers, "This was never meant to be permanent." This is not simple disillusionment. It goes deeper than mood, deeper than psychology. This is your eternal self, vast, intelligent, and unsentimental, recognizing that your current existence was built around an identity that, from a higher perspective, has already dissolved. You are still wearing the shape of a version of you that has been outgrown. The inner mismatch becomes too loud to ignore. And because the crystalline frequency cannot stabilize through outdated identity architecture, everything incompatible with your emerging higher self must dissolve first. Sometimes it dissolves gently, like leaves falling from a tree. Sometimes it dissolves forcefully, like a storm pulling down a structure that cannot stand. Either way, it is divine compassion and necessity in motion. It is purification. It is sacred elimination of everything blocking your evolution. During this dissolution phase, many people experience what feels like an identity crisis. The story of who I am begins to feel foreign, borrowed, almost embarrassing, like you've been living someone else's life. You might look back at your old decisions and feel shock, not because you regret them, but because you can't even recognize the consciousness that made them. And you may fear you are failing because you can no longer be the person you were. But this is not failure. This is the breakthrough. Your ego structure, the personality you constructed to navigate third-dimensional reality, was built for limitation. It was built for adaptation, for protection, for belonging, for survival. It did its job, but it is too small to contain the multidimensional being you are becoming, so it must expand or dissolve. And dissolution, though terrifying to the personality, is often the faster, more merciful path. You may find yourself unable to engage in conversations that once captivated you. Small talk becomes unbearable. Gossip feels like poison. Surface-level interactions drain your life force. Not because you have become antisocial or superior, but because your energy field is rejecting low-frequency engagement that no longer matches your vibrational signature. You are not losing your ability to connect. You are losing your ability to connect at the old frequency. That distinction is everything. New connections operating at the level of truth your field now demands will naturally replace what falls away. But the nervous system must first learn that emptiness is not abandonment. It is space being prepared. The second phase is the awakening of multidimensional perception. If the first phase uninstalls the old code, the second phase activates new hardware capacities you were born with but trained to ignore. It can feel as though veils have lifted, or dormant senses have reactivated. Suddenly, you begin accessing understanding through pathways you did not know existed. Your dreamscape transforms, shifting from scattered mental processing into lucid, symbolic, even prophetic experiences. Dreams become guidance. They arrive with texture, emotion, and precision, as if your deeper intelligence is meeting you in a language older than words. Your inner knowing, which may have been a whisper for years, becomes unmistakable. It is no longer a soft suggestion you doubt. It becomes a commanding clarity that directs your decisions with a calm certainty that surprises you. You may start perceiving the genuine emotional state of others without effort, sensing what is unspoken beneath their words. You may notice that you can feel the truth before it is confirmed. You might pick up on hidden motives, buried grief, or sincere love, as if your body has become a tuning fork for reality. Some will call this intuition, but for many starseed frequencies, it goes beyond intuition into something resembling organic telepathic reception, an awareness that is immediate, unfiltered, and strangely ordinary once it returns. You may also begin receiving transmissions, crystalline knowledge, energetic templates, or impressions from your star lineage or higher dimensional mentors. These may come through light language, geometric symbols, sudden inner images, or direct downloads of understanding that bypass the linear mind entirely. This is not fantasy. This is not wishful thinking. It is the return of inherent capacities, telepathic sensitivity, clairvoyant perception, energetic discernment coming back online as your consciousness extends beyond third-dimensional sequential thinking. You are becoming a conscious antenna. The bandwidth of your awareness expands. And with expansion comes a new responsibility: discernment. Not everything that appears in your inner field is guidance. Some impressions are old fear echoing. Some are collective noise. Some are your own subconscious, trying to keep you safe by keeping you small. In this phase, your task is to learn the texture of truth. True guidance feels clean, quiet, and coherent. Fear feels urgent, tightening, frantic. The crystalline frequency always carries clarity. As multidimensional perception awakens, synchronicities multiply. You think of someone and they contact you. You need a piece of information and it arrives through an overheard sentence, a book that falls open, a phrase on a sign, a song lyric that answers the question you didn't say out loud. You ask the universe for confirmation and it speaks back in patterns too elegant to dismiss. These are not coincidences. They are evidence that you are operating in coherence with the quantum field, interacting with the responsive intelligence of reality itself. Many in this stage experience what can only be described as impossible knowing. You suddenly grasp concepts you never studied. You speak wisdom that surprises even you. You understand what a stranger is going through without being told. The rational mind may scramble to explain it away because it was trained to believe that knowledge must always be earned through linear effort. But the multidimensional self does not learn the way the human mind learns. It remembers, and as the veils thin, that remembering becomes conscious, deliberate, usable. Then comes the third phase, the discovery of temporal malleability. This is where reality's non-linear essence begins to reveal itself not as an idea, but as lived experience. You start recognizing that your conscious selections in the present do not only influence what comes next, they appear to transform what came before. It can feel like retroactive healing. Old traumas that once felt fused into your identity suddenly lose their grip. Emotional wounds that resisted every method evaporate, not because you forced them to leave, but because their energetic foundation no longer receives sustenance from your current vibration. You are no longer feeding them with the same story, the same shame, the same identity attachment. When the frequency changes, the pattern collapses. People who once held tremendous power over your emotional world may simply drift away. Not with dramatic endings, not with battles, but with an almost eerie neutrality. They exit because your field no longer harmonizes with theirs. Their hooks can't find purchase. Their chaos no longer finds an echo in you. And simultaneously, circumstances begin to appear out of nowhere, perfectly aligning with desires you set months or years ago. Doors open with graceful simplicity. Support arrives at the moment it is needed. Solutions present themselves before problems fully form. It's not that you are being rewarded, it's that you have stopped pushing reality from desperation and deficiency. You are letting reality reorganize around coherence. In the crystalline frequency, manifestation is not a strained attempt to control outcomes. It is an organic consequence of alignment. Like water shaping itself around crystal geometry, life reshapes itself around the stabilized pattern of your vibration. You become the gravitational center of your self-generated reality, not through egoic dominance, but through coherent presence. Your nervous system, your thoughts, your emotional state, and your choices begin to broadcast one unified signal, and the quantum field responds. Most people believe time moves in one direction, past to present to future. They assume the past is fixed. But many frameworks of quantum theory describe reality as a field of probabilities where observation and choice influence outcomes, and where time is not always the simple, straight line the human mind prefers. In the mystical language of the Council, all moments exist within the same living field. Past, present, and future are not separate rooms, they are different angles of the same space. When you change your frequency now, you are not just choosing a different future, you are choosing which version of the past you remain connected to, the meaning you assign, the identity you carry forward, the timeline you continue feeding with your attention. Imagine your life as a vast tree with infinite branches. Every choice creates a new branch, a new timeline. Most people believe they are stuck on one branch, dragged along by old decisions and inherited patterns. They call it fate. They call it circumstance, they call it reality. But you are beginning to see that reality is, in many ways, the branch you keep choosing again and again through your focus, your emotional baseline, and the stories you agree to inhabit. This is where integration becomes essential. Revelation cannot be rushed. Power must be stabilized. If you are learning to shift timelines, you must also learn to hold your center when the external world still looks uncertain. The crystalline frequency does not demand perfection. It demands honesty. It demands responsibility for what you emit. Because in this band, your signal carries farther and returns faster. So move gently. Let the dissolving happen. Let the new perception unfold without forcing it into performance. Let time loosen without trying to prove anything to yourself or others. The stages are not punishment, they are choreography. And when you recognize the choreography, you stop bracing for impact. You start dancing with the momentum. You become an intentional participant in your own ascension, clear-eyed, steady, and awake. But you are not on the branch, not truly. The branch is only where your attention has been resting. You are the awareness observing the entire tree, silent, expansive, capable of moving without force. When you remember this, a new kind of freedom opens. From this perspective, you can shift your awareness to any branch at any moment, simply by changing what you feed with your energy, the meaning you assign, the story you repeat, the emotional frequency you choose to inhabit. This is why healing is never only emotional processing. When you heal a trauma, you are not merely soothing a memory or making peace with the past. You are jumping literally, energetically, into a timeline where that trauma has less power, where its effects are diminished, where your nervous system responds differently, where you made different choices in response to the wound. The event may still exist as information, but it no longer exists as a prison. Your body stops reenacting it, your mind stops orbiting it, your heart stops bracing for it. And when those internal patterns change, the branch you occupy changes with them. This is also why people in your life sometimes seem to transform overnight. It can feel bewildering, like reality is unstable, or like you can't trust what you thought you knew about them. But consider another possibility. They did not suddenly change. You shifted timelines. You are now interacting with a version of them that exists on the branch you have tuned into. The version of them you knew on the old timeline still exists as a probability line in the field, but you are no longer energetically connected to it. Your resonance can no longer reach that version, and that version can no longer reach you. You didn't lose anyone. You changed channels. This is why old situations sometimes resolve themselves without your intervention. You are not on the timeline where those situations require your energy anymore. In one branch, conflict must be fought. In another, it evaporates. In one, you are trapped in repeating loops. In another, a door opens and you walk out. The mind wants a logical explanation, a sequence of steps, a cause and effect narrative that makes it feel safe. But the quantum field does not always announce its mechanics to the linear mind. It simply rearranges itself around the frequency you stabilize. If you can feel this already happening, something dissolving without struggle, something shifting without the usual friction, take a moment and name it to yourself. Witnessing is not a performance. It is an anchoring. When you consciously notice a shift, you stabilize the reality band that produced it. The crystalline timeline is not coming someday. It is reorganizing your experience now, moment by moment, through what you choose to hold as real. The fourth phase is where authentic power truly begins. Sovereign energy mastery. This is not the shallow idea of staying positive. This is not spiritual bypassing, pretending everything is fine while your body is screaming. Sovereign mastery is deeper and far more honest. It is the moment you recognize without intellectual debate that your emotional landscape is not dictated by external situations, other people's reactions, or environmental conditions. You see clearly that your emotional frequency has been generating them, transmitting the energetic template that organizes your experience. In this stage, you begin to understand what it means to be a creator rather than a reactor. When external turbulence arises and you choose to remain balanced, not numb, not detached but centered, you notice something extraordinary. The turbulence begins to weaken in your presence. Its intensity diminishes as if it cannot find traction. When you maintain a coherent vibration of love, acceptance, and clarity in the face of others' fear, reactivity, or confusion, you witness their resistance begin to soften. Sometimes it melts gradually. Sometimes it dissolves abruptly, not because you are forcing anything, but because coherence is contagious. A stable field invites other fields to stabilize. This is the critical moment when you realize that carrying starseed consciousness is not about collecting temporary supernatural abilities. It is not about dazzling demonstrations or proving anything to anyone. It is about remembering at a cellular depth that pure, undiluted consciousness is the singular true power in existence, and you are a sovereign expression of that consciousness. You do not need permission to be real. You do not need external validation to know what you know. You do not need institutions, authority figures, or even loved ones to believe in your experience for it to have truth. Energetic sovereignty is not rebellion, it is clarity. You recognize that you are the authority over your inner state, and that your direct experience of reality is more valid than any inherited belief, any cultural conditioning, any second-hand teaching that asks you to deny what you can feel in your bones. Yet this does not make you arrogant. True sovereignty is humble because it recognizes that everyone is equally sovereign, equally powerful, equally divine. You are not special in essence. You are simply awake to what has always been true. And in that awakening, you become unshakable. External chaos cannot destabilize you because you no longer mistake it for ultimate reality. Other people's opinions cannot diminish you because you understand their perceptions are just one angle in an infinite field of angles. Their judgment becomes information, not identity. Their fear becomes an energy you can witness, not a frequency you must absorb. In this phase, you begin to notice something subtle but undeniable. Your presence shifts rooms. When you enter a space holding a high frequency, the energy of that space adjusts. Tension diffuses. Anxious people calm. Confused individuals gain clarity. Conversations that were about to turn sharp soften without anyone knowing why. You are not doing anything. You are being. And your being is coherent enough to create a field effect. Others entrain to your stability the way tuning forks resonate in sympathy, one vibration calling forth another. Then comes the fifth phase, the activation of sacred purpose. After years that may have felt like confusion, isolation, and relentless inner growth, a pattern reveals itself. It's as if your entire life suddenly makes sense, not in a sentimental way, but in a precise and almost mathematical way. Everything you endured, everything that challenged you, everything that broke you open aligns. You see the logic beneath the pain. You were never being prepared for an ordinary existence. You were receiving a cosmic recalibration, energetic preparation for a specific function within humanity's historic awakening. The challenges that demanded endurance and trust were not obstacles designed to stop you. They were initiations, rites of passage, refining your spirit and strengthening your capacity to hold frequency under pressure. Even your sensitivity, so often misunderstood in dense third-dimensional environments as fragility, reveals itself as specialized equipment. It developed your ability to sense subtle shifts, to perceive what others ignore, to contain intensity without collapsing, and to transmit elevated coherence into a reality that often resists it. You were trained by experience itself. And now, the wisdom you integrated begins to express naturally as your offering to the collective transformation. But mission activation does not always look like the mind imagines. You may have expected a grand calling, a dramatic sign, a clearly labeled role. Yet for most starseed frequencies, the mission is more subtle and more powerful than a title. Your mission is your presence. Your mission is maintaining your frequency in a world designed to pull it down. Your mission is being living proof that another way of being is possible. You do not need a platform. You do not need recognition. You do not need thousands of followers. You need only to be fully yourself, radiating your authentic frequency. When you do, you automatically serve. Some will be called into visible service, teaching, healing, creating, speaking, building projects that reach many. But many will serve quietly, invisibly, with equal impact. You will be the calm in the workplace storm. You will be the stable anchor in the family system that has never known stability. You will be the friend who listens without absorbing, who loves without enabling, who speaks truth without violence. You will transmit crystalline frequency through daily interactions, through your peaceful response to chaos, your refusal to feed drama, your commitment to unity rather than separation. Never underestimate this invisible work. One person holding coherent frequency in a room full of fear can shift the entire field. Not instantly in a dramatic display, but steadily, like a candle changing the atmosphere of a dark space. Purpose is not something you must force yourself to find. It is something you become through your willingness to be transformed. As you embody higher frequency, purpose expresses itself naturally. The right opportunities appear, the right people find you, the right resources flow. You do not chase it, you allow it. This is the difference between third-dimensional doing and fifth-dimensional being. Doing strains for results. Being becomes the result. The sixth phase is the concrete practice of timeline stabilization. This is where you stop exhausting yourself trying to repair, argue with, or modify the crumbling old reality. You release the compulsion to convince people who are not ready. You stop trying to win debates about what is possible. You stop bleeding energy into systems that are dissolving. Instead, your attention shifts entirely to radiating the new world and embodying its qualities. You become a stabilizer of the crystalline band by how you live. Not by proving, but by demonstrating. Not by preaching, but by inhabiting. Your centered awareness, resilient joy, consistent authenticity, these become a living bridge between dimensions, a gateway through which elevated frequency pours into physical form. People begin experiencing ease around you without understanding why. They feel renewed hope without being able to name the source. They make different choices simply because your coherence gives their nervous system permission to calm. In this stage, what once seemed miraculous becomes ordinary. Synchronicity becomes expected. Support becomes natural. Healing becomes less like warfare and more like thawing. And the old paradigm, so addicted to struggle, so dependent on fear, begins to look like a dream you're waking from. Timeline stabilization is not passive, it is devotion. It is the choice, again and again, to return to coherence, to choose love without collapsing into naivety, to hold boundaries without closing your heart, to stay present when the mind tries to run back into old stories. This is how you anchor the branch you want to live on. This is how you become the awareness that not only observes the tree but consciously selects the reality you inhabit. And as you stabilize, others will feel it. Some will be drawn toward your frequency like warmth in winter. Some will resist it because it reveals what they have been avoiding. Let both be. Your task is not to drag anyone across a threshold. Your task is to keep the threshold open by remaining what you truly are. A coherent field, a living transmission, a bridge into the crystalline world that is already here. And as you stabilize this new way of being, something unmistakable begins to happen at the same time. Your external life starts mirroring what you have cultivated internally, not as a reward handed down by some distant force, but as physical evidence of energetic law. The deep love you have learned to give yourself becomes reflected in the quality of your relationships. The effortless abundance you once thought was reserved for others begins to show up as support, opportunities, and synchronicities that arrive without the old struggle. The serenity you have practiced again and again, in moments when chaos tried to hook you, becomes visible in the way problems dissolve faster, the way conflict cannot stick to you, the way your world feels quieter even when the world at large feels loud. This is timeline anchoring. It is the art of staying tuned. Timeline anchoring means you stop reacting to the collapsing paradigm as if it is your responsibility to hold it together. You stop letting your attention be harvested by fear. You stop consuming media that is designed to inflame the nervous system and keep the collective mind locked into division. You stop getting pulled into endless arguments about political systems and social dramas that are dissolving anyway. You stop trying to convince people who are not ready to see, because you finally understand that persuasion is not awakening. Awakening is resonance. Instead, you turn your creative energy toward building the new. You focus on what expands your frequency, what brings you joy, what aligns with the reality you intend to inhabit. You choose environments, conversations, and practices that nourish coherence. You simplify, you cleanse, you begin living like someone who trusts the signal inside more than the noise outside. And it's crucial to say this clearly. This is not spiritual bypassing. This is not pretending suffering does not exist. It is not ignoring injustice, pain, or the real struggles people face. It is recognizing something deeper, something many people resist because it requires a new strategy. You cannot fix a broken system from within the operating code that keeps it broken. You cannot heal a paradigm whose foundation is fear by using fear-based methods, fear-based attention, and fear-based identity. At a certain point, the most compassionate move is not to keep arguing with the collapse. It is to step out of it and begin building what comes next. Your peace in the midst of chaos is not indifference. It is the most powerful act of rebellion and creation available to you. Because peace is not passive. Peace is a frequency, and frequency is architecture. Every moment you choose love over fear, you anchor the new timeline more deeply into physical reality. Every time you refuse to engage in separation, consciousness refuse to demonize, refuse to harden, refuse to become a weapon, you are strengthening the lattice of the crystalline world. You are proving, through your nervous system, that another reality is possible. If this transmission is touching something deep within you, if you feel the truth of these words vibrating in your own cells, then the invitation is not merely to follow an idea. It is to subscribe to a frequency, to step into a living movement of remembrance, a space where consciousness is reclaiming itself. This is not about collecting content. It is about joining a community of sovereign beings who are consciously creating the new earth together by how they think, how they speak, how they choose, how they hold their presence when it would be easier to collapse. Then arrives the seventh phase, deeply reassuring and quietly transformative, collective recognition. At this stage, a realization begins to settle into you like dawn. You are not alone. You were never alone. Across the globe, millions upon millions of awakened consciousnesses are entering and stabilizing the crystalline timeline, some knowingly, some without words for it, but all by the same inner gravity pulling them toward coherence. And you begin to recognize one another in a way that has nothing to do with ideology, personality, background, or identity labels. It is vibrational recognition. You feel it before you understand it. You notice it in their eyes, in the calm beneath their words, in the energetic signature of their presence. It is an unmistakable resonance that bypasses ego constructs and lands in the soul like a bell being struck. When you meet these members of your soul tribe unexpectedly online, in a random conversation, in a quiet moment that feels strangely orchestrated, there is often an immediate knowing, a sense of returning home. Not home as a place, but home as a frequency. A recognition that cannot be explained and does not need to be. And that recognition does more than comfort you. It reminds you of scale. It reveals that what you are participating in is infinitely larger than your personal healing or your individual awakening. You are contributing to a collective emergence, the birth of a new paradigm of existence for humanity. This is why connection matters. When starseed frequencies connect, their fields do not merely add together the way numbers add. They amplify geometrically. Two coherent beings together do not create double the signal. They create multiplication like two tuning forks harmonizing and producing a third tone that didn't exist before. This is why the old paradigm has worked so tirelessly to keep you isolated, to make you feel strange, broken, or alone. In isolation, you doubt your perception. In connection, you remember your power. And yet, these connections are not always meant to look like conventional relationships. Some soul tribe members enter your life for a precise activation, a specific exchange of information, healing, or frequency, and then they move on. This can confuse the human heart, which is trained to cling, to define worth by permanence. But the crystalline frequency is built on flow. Do not cling, trust the orchestration. Some will become lifelong companions. Others will be brief but profound encounters that change your trajectory forever. All are arranged by your higher self and by the collective intelligence guiding this awakening. As you connect with more of your soul family, you begin to see a larger pattern. You are not merely supporting each other as individuals. You are forming a living crystalline grid across the planet. Each awakened being is a node in this grid, a point of light holding coherence. As more nodes activate and connect, the grid strengthens, becoming more stable, more capable of receiving and distributing the elevated frequencies currently flooding Earth. This grid is not a metaphor, it is an energetic infrastructure. It is the invisible network through which the new Earth stabilizes. And here is what the Arcturian Council wants you to understand deeply, not as a flattering idea, but as a truth that changes how you hold your life. You did not incarnate here during this time by accident. You are not experiencing intense upheaval because you are damaged, inadequate, or unbalanced. On the contrary, you are experiencing it because you volunteered for a demanding, exquisitely important assignment: to become a living connector between dimensions, to anchor fifth-dimensional awareness, its natural qualities of infinite love, unified consciousness, and limitless prosperity directly into a dense third-dimensional construct, to embody what seems impossible to the old paradigm, and by embodying it, help humanity remember what it truly is. You are a pathfinder, a beacon, a frequency transformer. Before you entered this body, this lifetime, you stood before the council and other benevolent guides. They showed you what the mission would entail. They showed you the loneliness, the moments you would forget who you are, the density of the human illusion, the way grief and fear could make you question your own stability. They showed you how easy it is to get lost inside the dream of limitation, to confuse conditioning for truth, to mistake survival for life. And you looked at all of it, the challenges, the obstacles, the nights when you would feel abandoned by meaning, and you said yes. You chose this. Why would you choose such a difficult path? Because you are not a fragile soul. You are one of the strongest, most capable consciousnesses available for this kind of mission. The Council does not place inexperienced souls into assignments of this magnitude. They send the ones who have navigated dimensional shifts before those who have served as wayshowers in other civilizations, other galaxies, other timelines. You have done this work. This is not your first planetary ascension. You are a specialist in consciousness, evolution, and Earth called for the best of the best. The confusion you endured, the periods of isolation, the times you doubted yourself, these were not accidents. They were training. You needed to fully experience the range of human forgetting before you could transcend it in a way that becomes useful for others. You needed to forget your luminous essence so completely that the journey of remembering would forge an unshakable foundation inside you, not mere belief, but certainty that lives beneath thought. Every tear, every moment of hopelessness, every season where nothing made sense was a refining fire. It shaped your spirit into a vessel that can hold radiance without collapsing. This is the core of the Starseed mission, the dance of forgetting and remembering. You cannot guide others through the awakening if you have not tasted the terror of letting go of familiar reality. You cannot hold compassion for those who resist awakening if you do not remember how frightening it feels to have your world dissolve. Your patience is born from experience. Your wisdom is earned. It is not borrowed from teachings. It is lived. And this is why you are credible. This is why you are needed. Because as you stabilize your transformation, you become a trustworthy beacon for those who will awaken after you. Every starseed frequency that successfully navigates this transition does not merely change their personal life. They generate a wave, a momentum, a vibrational corridor that makes it easier for countless others to begin remembering. When one being anchors coherence, the collective field becomes slightly more coherent. When many do, the field changes dramatically. You are not only resolving personal trauma, you are healing multiple timelines, individual, ancestral, and planetary, restoring coherence to fragmented histories. You are not only discovering a personal calling, you are becoming part of a living planetary correction, a return to unity, to love, to truth, not as concepts, but as embodied reality. And the more you embody it, the more the new world becomes not a distant vision, but the branch you live on, stable, luminous, and real. You are helping manifest a shared reality, one that is not built on domination, scarcity, or survival, but on coherence. A future existence where every individual, every consciousness can embody their highest expression, contribute their unique gifts, and flourish in a kind of fulfillment that does not require anyone else to diminish. This is not a personal fantasy. It is an evolutionary trajectory, and you are not merely becoming who you were eternally designed to be. You are becoming a conscious participant in one of the most significant transformations this planet, and truly this sector of the cosmos, has ever experienced. A new golden age is not coming. It is materializing in present time. The new Earth is not somewhere else. It is not a distant destination, a utopia parked in the future that you must wait to reach. It is a frequency, a dimensional layer that exists right here, right now, overlaying the third-dimensional reality most people still perceive as the only option. The old world and the new world occupy the same space. The difference is the channel you are tuned to. As you raise your frequency, as you embody crystalline consciousness, you are not leaving Earth. You are bringing heaven into Earth. You are collapsing the illusion of separation between dimensions. You are creating a reality where the spiritual and the material integrate fully, practically, beautifully, a world where abundance flows as a natural consequence of coherence, not as a prize for those who fight hardest. A world where health is the norm because the nervous system is no longer forced to live inside constant threat. A world where conflict resolves through understanding rather than force because perception is widened beyond the small lens of fear. A world where technology serves consciousness rather than enslaving it, where innovation amplifies human dignity instead of harvesting human attention. This is the world your soul came here to build. Not primarily through political movements or social revolutions, though those have their place and their timing, but through energetic embodiment, through living example, through holding a frequency so stable, so pure, so magnetically coherent that others are drawn toward it not by argument, not by pressure, but by the felt possibility of a better way. That is how paradigms truly change, not by shouting at the old world to become new, but by becoming the new world so completely that the old world loses its grip. Tonight, before you enter the sacred sleep state, before the mind dissolves into the dream field, pause and take this moment. Place your hands softly over your heart and feel its rhythm. The steady pulse is not merely biological, it is the quiet drumbeat of your divine nature inside form. Close your eyes gently and speak these words aloud, not as performance, not as wishful thinking, but as a declaration that imprints into the body. I remember who I am. I stabilize the crystalline timeline through my presence. I trust the divine choreography of my awakening. Feel the truth of these words moving through you as vibration. Let them echo through your cells like a tuning fork, striking the deepest parts of your being, waking what has been sleeping. Let them not only be spoken, let them be believed by the body. Because your body is the anchoring device, your nervous system is the temple where the new frequency becomes real. And as you speak, sense what has always been around you, even when you forgot. The compassionate presence of your star family, your cosmic heritage, the benevolent intelligences that have witnessed your courage, not as distant saviors, but as loving witnesses to your steadiness. They are acknowledging your bravery, your commitment, your willingness to remain here, inside density, inside confusion, inside the long training of human limitation until remembrance was earned, embodied, undeniable. Sense the new Earth pulsing with crystalline frequencies, not as an imagined planet in the sky, but as a living layer of reality welcoming you home. Home is not a location. Home is the frequency where you stop betraying yourself. Home is where you no longer shrink your radiance to make others comfortable. Home is where you remember that your presence is not accidental, it is assignment. You are not wandering between worlds lost in some cosmic void. You are, in your fundamental essence, the living bridge between dimensions, a breathing portal, a luminous connector, and the moment has arrived to step into that recognition completely, confidently, magnificently, to embody your sovereignty with every heartbeat, not in grand gestures, but in the steady consistency of who you choose to be. And here is something even more powerful. When you practice this, you are not practicing alone. Millions of starseeds across the planet are anchoring the same frequency at this very moment, through their own quiet rituals, their own private declarations, their own daily choices to remain coherent. Your individual practice links with theirs. Your field joins the global grid. The wave you generate is not isolated. It becomes part of a synchronized activation that ripples through the collective consciousness. This is how the crystalline timeline stabilizes. Through enough beings, choosing it, embodying it, feeding it with attention, love, and disciplined presence, until it becomes dominant. This is why your personal healing matters. Not because you are being measured, not because you must be perfect, but because every choice you make is a vote for a timeline. Every time you choose love over fear, peace over chaos, truth over illusion, you send a ripple far beyond what your eyes can see. Every time you hold your center while the world spins into confusion, you anchor coherence for the collective. Every time you choose compassion when you could choose judgment, you build the new earth. Every time you trust your inner knowing over external authority, you demonstrate sovereignty for those who are watching, silently learning that they too are allowed to listen to themselves. And because recognition is part of anchoring, make your intention tangible. Choose one word, one power word that captures what you are choosing right now. Not a casual word, a word that carries the energetic signature of your commitment. A word that feels like a frequency in your mouth. It could be clarity, devotion, courage, serenity, integrity, freedom, love, radiance, trust. Let it be your declaration to the quantum field. Let it be your signal to your soul family. Let it be your anchor into the crystalline timeline. Then tune your awareness outward and feel into the words others are choosing. Even if you never meet them, your recognition matters. Resonance is not limited by distance. When you witness someone else's declaration and it rings true, offer support not as empty encouragement, but as energetic amplification. A simple "I see you" can transmit more coherence than paragraphs of advice. This is not just interaction. This is conscious field weaving. This is how the new earth is built. One intentional connection at a time, one moment of genuine recognition creating bridges across the collective. And if any part of this transmission moved you, if you felt something shift inside, even subtly, do not keep it contained. Share it. Not as propaganda, not as proof, not as something you must convince others to accept, but as a frequency you are willing to transmit. When you share consciousness content like this, you are not only passing information, you are sending an energetic ripple that accelerates your own embodiment while activating dormant codes in others. There is someone in your sphere, someone you know, or someone you have not met yet, waiting for exactly this activation. They are feeling the shifts but cannot name them. They are sensing the timeline transition but believe they are alone. They are experiencing the dissolution of the old world in their body and mind, but no one has given them language that feels safe, sacred, and true. Your willingness to share might be the catalyst that helps them remember, because this is how the grid strengthens, not through force, through coherence, through transmission. And if you felt that unmistakable soul recognition, this is my tribe, this is my frequency, this is what I have been searching for, then stay aligned. Not as passive consumption, but as deliberate tuning. When you return to a coherent field again and again, you reinforce that frequency in your own nervous system. You become less easily pulled into old loops, you stabilize faster, you remember sooner. Every person who chooses to remain connected to this frequency becomes a node in the crystalline grid, not a number, not an audience, but a living point of light choosing to participate. The more nodes that activate, the stronger the field becomes. The stronger the field becomes, the easier it is for others to wake without being torn apart by confusion. We are not simply individuals watching something. We are a network of awakened consciousness, deliberately choosing to embody new earth while the old paradigm dissolves around us. The crystalline timeline is here. It is now. It is available to you in this moment. You do not need to wait for external permission. You do not need global events, perfect conditions, or some distant cosmic alignment. You need only choose it, embody it, become it. And in that becoming, you do not just transform your life. You participate in the transformation of life on Earth. You are the bridge. You are the light. You are the way forward. Welcome home, Starseed. Welcome to the crystalline timeline. Welcome to the new Earth that has been waiting for you to remember who you are. And now, as this remembering stabilizes, the next crucial step in mastery reveals itself. Understanding that you are the projector of reality, not the image being projected. The old paradigm trains you to identify as the character inside the film, reacting, striving, suffering, trying to control scenes that appear outside your reach. But when you recognize yourself as the source, the one broadcasting the experience, your relationship with manifestation changes completely. Because when you finally realize you are the projector and not the image, everything changes. The moment you stop begging reality to be different and begin adjusting the signal within you, the beliefs you hold, the emotions you stabilize, the meaning you assign, reality responds as it always has, by reflecting the broadcast. This is what the next transmission will illuminate in detail: how to operate as the conscious creator rather than the unconscious participant in your quantum field. How to direct the beam instead of being dazzled by the screen. How to remember with practical clarity that your awareness is not trapped inside life. It is generating it. And that understanding is waiting for you now.